Hallowell's other writings. Hallowell began work with William Berens in 1930, at almost the same time the Nebraska poet John Neihardt was working with the Lakota holy man Black Elk in South Dakota. But Hallowell produced no equivalent to Black Elk Speaks, which is a good thing in some ways. The texts in this book are far less mediated than Neihardt's and have not required a Raymond DeMalley to seek out and retrieve transcripts closer to the original words. Endnote 1. As well, even as Hallowell never elevated Berens to the stature of a Black Elk, he rarely went to the other extreme of cloaking him in the anonymity that anthropologists often impose on their informants, whether they wanted it or not. Rather, he often credited and thanked the elderly chief warmly in his writings, recognizing his role and historical importance. The present volume also has several roots in events and developments of the mid-1980s. In 1985 to 86, Susan Gray was completing a history thesis with Jennifer Brown in a joint master's program at the Universities of Winnipeg and Manitoba. Looking at Methodist Indian day schools in 4 northern Manitoba communities from 1890 to 1925, she focused part of her research on schooling in the Ojibwe community of Berens River. Her studies led her to A. Irving Hallowell and other published and archival sources on the region. In the same period that Brown was returning to deeper study of the Hallowell works she had known as a graduate student. The American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia had received Hallowell's papers in 1983 and had just begun to make them available for use. Jennifer Brown was fortunate to be the first visiting researcher to work on them. Brown had read much of Hallowell's published work during her doctoral studies at the University of Chicago in the early 1970s. Although she never met him, Hallowell was something of an intellectual grandfather figure for her, as 2 of her major professors, Raymond D. Fogelson and George W. Stocking, Jr., had studied with him at the University of Pennsylvania. When she arrived to teach at the University of Winnipeg in 1983, she looked forward to following up on the historical dimensions of Hallowell's work in Manitoba and on the story of his collaboration with William Berens. University of Winnipeg grants and funds from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada provided support for research in Hallowell's papers, and between 1986 and 1992, she made several visits to the APS Library in Philadelphia. Other doors began to open in the same period. In 1985 to 1986, Morris Berens, a grandson of William and an undergraduate history major at the University of Winnipeg, signed up for a couple of Brown's courses. Encouraged by Brown's interest in Berens River, he began to research family information that could be synthesized with archival and documentary sources. Brown's first discoveries among Hallowell's papers included the Berens Reminiscences published here, and she and Morris Berens undertook initial research on and transcription of this text, while he drew upon the memories of his father, John Berens, and other family members to research his course papers and add to our knowledge. In turn, other relatives became interested, leading to further links, friendships, and sharing of information. At about that time, anthropologist James A. Clifton was planning a book of essays on historical personages he described as culturally marginal, who functioned between Indian and white worlds and experienced complex issues of identity during their lives in these border areas. When he approached Brown about contributing a chapter for the book, she saw it as an opportunity to write a life of William Berens, pulling together the material already gathered. Although she debated Clifton's positioning of such personages, seeing Berens as central to his Ojibwe world, not marginal, her essay, A Place in Your Mind for Them All, Chief William Berens, is the rather distant ancestor of the introduction, Part 1, of this book. Endnote 2.